Detoxify your life quickly and safely. So, what are you going to learn today? What are toxins? So, a little bit of biochemistry and what impact they have on your health and well being. And which are the most important organs in our body that are helping you to support the detoxification process. And at the end, when you understand all of this, we will look at the practical examples of the detox menu. So, what are toxins? The dictionary would say something like toxins are harmful substances produced by plants, animals, human cells, and synthetic toxins. So you are thinking, why would plants actually create toxins? Because if you think about it, they also don't want to be eaten by any insect or actually not even people. So, for example, beans and lentils, they have toxins called lectins. And some people, when they are under the stress, they have holes in their intestine. This is called increased permeability, leaky gut. And then these toxins, these lectins, can leach into the bloodstream and cause systemic inflammation. Animals, of course, are also producing the toxins because they want to kill. So it can be snake and frog and many other animals. Human cells are also producing toxins because when you have parasites and viruses and bacteria in your body, your immune cells, the white blood cells, the police of the body, want to save you. So, for example, macrophages, the big eaters, are going to spill the toxins on the bacteria pathogens, kill them, and then somebody needs to clean the mess. If the mess is not clean because you are under the stress, this is also causing inflammation. And then, of course, synthetic toxins that are everywhere in the environment, and we will cover it today. But why do we care so much about toxins and what influence they actually have on our health and well-being? So, you know that every cell in your body has receptors, so it's like antenna. And every hormone is the key. So the receptor is the lock and a hormone is the key. Hormone is the chemical messenger that needs to pass the message to the cell so that the cell knows what to do. So, for example, in the evening, hormone melatonin is produced and it's supposed to come to the cell and say, shut down because we are going to restore and repair. But toxins are mimicking the action of hormones and they are placing the information when it's not supposed to be. So it might be acting like a melatonin during the day and you might feel extremely tired. Or they just block the receptor and the real hormones that are actually created and sent from the adrenal glands to pass the message, this place is occupied, so it's blocking the receptors. Also, toxins are free radicals, so it's the single molecule, and they don't like to be single. They want to pair with somebody, and they don't care if that other cell or other amino acid is in a relationship or whether it is single. It will grab the first opportunity to pair with somebody. So we know that the DNA is extremely important for it because there is a sequence of the amino acids and the cells are replicating all the time. And of course, we have kind of controllers in our body that are checking the quality of the cells. And if they are not replicated in a correct sequence as it's supposed to be, there is a process called apoptosis and it will kill the wrong cell. But when we are under the stress, this police, this controller is not there. And the chances are, if the toxins are going to damage the DNA and steal the structure, then the cells are replicating with the wrong information. And this is causing cancer because cancer is basically the wrong replication of the cell. And if it wasn't caught by the quality managers of our body, the wrong cells are going to replicate even more, creating the tumor and then metastasis, and that's the end of everything. And of course, during all this process with having all the toxins in our body, it is inducing constantly inflammation. And inflammation is extremely stressful event for our body. It is inspiring the hormone cortisol, the stress hormone, and then you feel agitated and nervous and tired, and you cannot fall asleep properly. And then we, for example, know chemicals that we voluntarily sometimes put into our body, like, for example, Botox. So Botox will paralyze the muscles in the face so that it cannot move at all. So, what is systemic toxicity and how that can happen? So, it happens when the toxins penetrate and get into the bloodstream, and the blood is circulating everywhere. So it can cause respiratory problems, gastrointestinal problems, neurological, haematological, dermatological, reproductive, and the DNA damage with the oxidative stress. So this is quite scientific. Let's look at what it looks like. So, for example, when you suffer with night sweats, this might not be because you are going through the perimenopause and menopause, but this can be actually caused by high levels of cadmium in your blood, because cadmium is blocking the receptors of the thyroid hormone, which is responsible for the regulation of the temperature in your body. So that's why you have to be really careful if what you eat. And cadmium is, for example, in soy products. We'll talk about it later. Fatigue and sluggishness. So what can be causing it? So again, if the toxins get into the bloodstream, it can attack the red blood cells and actually displace the iron and the oxygen from the hemoglobin. If we don't have oxygen being carried into our brain, we might feel this fatigue and sluggishness, and it can cause even anemia. Or if you have skin eruption or dermatitis, this is a cause that your liver is suffering, is trying to detoxify all those toxins, but it cannot manage. So then it is going through your skin. And it can cause, for example, even chronic itching. So one of the causes of the chronic itching is either histamine intolerance or mold in the household. And you can have little bit of mold in the shower, but you are inhaling it constantly, or it can be somewhere in the room, old building. Food sensitivities, as I, for example, mentioned the lectins in beans. So if you are stressed and you are suffering with gastrointestinal issues, bloating, farting, diarrhea, constipation, you have this leaky gut and you are sensitive to any food. And especially, for example, having this histamine intolerance. So this is caused by the sulphites in, for example, wine, aged cheese, fermented food, oranges, dry fruit. Immediately feel the reaction, swollen glands or any other signs and symptoms, low mood and irritability. Because of course, all these heavy metals, cadmium, aluminium, lead, are acting on the neurotransmitters in our brain, and then serotonin, the happy hormone, cannot be produced. Poor cognition, that's especially aluminium that is causing Alzheimer's disease. Of course, even headaches, this can be lead toxicity. Maybe you realize that you are actually sensitive to chemicals and odors and perfumes. So when somebody is cooking a food, you can actually smell it so intensely that it irritates you. Or a colleague at work has a strong perfume and you can't stand it. So this is hypersensitivity. Sneezing, wheezing, nasal drip. It's just this water that is constantly hanging in your nose. So you see the full picture, the systemic toxicity that we can be carrying throughout the day and life. And now you are thinking, so Am I exposed to toxins? So, if you eat processed food, pizza, biscuits, bread, sweet bread, tortilla, whatever, that is processed food, and it always has some synthetic um, toxins. Dairy products are full of hormones. Farmed fish, that's basically pure toxic load. Large fish like tuna that lives for 20 to 50 years in a very polluted ocean, and it's storing all that fat and the toxins in the fat, and then you eat it. If you use any beauty products that have paraben or sodium laurate, like a toothpaste or a shampoo, you might be exposed to hell a lot of toxins. Are you living in an old house where there used to be a mold, but then somebody nicely painted it over with a white anti-mold paint, which is toxic as well? Do you drink polluted water? For example, in France, the water is not the best quality. Are you living in the city? Do you exercise on the road, therefore constantly inhaling all the fumes from the cars? What about pesticides and herbicides? So first of all, what are they? So pesticides actually serve the purpose because they are designed to kill all the living organism, insect, mold, fungus, because the farmers also need to produce the crop and have the living. So if they use the pesticides and herbicides, the chances are that the crop survives the season and they will be able to sell it and make some money. So farmers, as a prevention, spray the crop multiple times. And I see very often when I go to the supermarket, it says these lemons were not treating after the collection of the lemons. And then there is a tiny star. And when you go and you read the tiny letters, it says it was not sprayed after the collection, but it was sprayed before. So it was still treated, and you still should not eat the rim from the lemons, for example. Toxic metals are absolutely everywhere. Cadmium is in all soya products. Mercury, arsenic, lead are actually leaching into the water. So, for example, if you buy rice from China, it's heavily polluted with arsenic, and arsenic is actually causing the Alzheimer's disease as well, Parkinson's disease, neurotoxicity. Lead is absolutely everywhere. What about genetically modified crop? So you would say that in Europe is heavily controlled, and that's true, but for example, in US, it's not. And why farmers prefer to have genetically modified crop? Because the modification of the DNA was already including the pesticides in it. So they don't have to spray the fields as much. And you think, okay, but we don't use anything from US. But you are wrong, because all the food pellets for all the cattle in here is brought from Brazil or from like other parts, non-EU parts. And then if the animals are eating it, it gets into their meat, and then you are eating it. So is organic better? And the answer would be yes, because of course the farmers, organic farmers, they have a very limited and much stricter list of pesticides and herbicides that they can use. So it doesn't mean that they are not using any chemicals at all, but those ones that are not as harmful. Yeah, and they are, especially small farmers, they're trying to use manure, but manure also has the nitrates and other toxins in it, so it still gets into the plant. And they use, for example, natural pest control. So they walk in the fields and they control plant by plant how everything is going. And that's why the organic products are much more expensive. So not everybody has money and budget to buy everything in organic quality. And there is an association called Environmental Working Group, and every year they test all the products in US and in Europe and see which ones are extremely polluted and toxic and should be therefore bought in the organic quality, and which ones were okay. So what you should buy in organic quality is, for example, strawberries. And why? Because strawberries, as you know, turn bad very quickly. And if you buy strawberries, for example, from Morocco, it takes 4 to 5 days to get to the supermarket. If this was not treated with chemicals, the strawberries wouldn't survive. So then you might be eating all the chemicals, and you might actually have a skin issues after eating it because you are so polluted in that moment. Spinach. Have you ever tried to garden spinach, to grow garden in your spinach? Because all the flies always go and eat it. The same goes, for example, for rucola. So if this is sprayed with the herbicides and pesticides, it survives. So spinach always in organic quality. Nectarines and peaches, the same. Because it's a soft fruit like cherries, apricots, it turns bad very quickly. Apples, why apples? If you go to the supermarket and you see all these shiny apples, that's basically the wax and the toxins on the skin, because they store these apples the whole season. You know that if you have an apple in the organic apple in the kitchen, after 2 days it's just totally dry and it turns bad and it has marks on it. And they don't want this because they can collect the apples only once a year. So they spray it, make it shiny. For this reason, you would always want to buy organic apples. What you don't need to buy in organic quality, but you still can, is, for example, avocado, because it has this quite thick skin. It doesn't get damaged by like diseases or anything, so it doesn't have to be sprayed. It ripens quite quickly, so avocado is fine. Pineapple, onions, papaya, cauliflower, broccoli, mushrooms, kiwi. If you really don't have a budget, just feel free to buy this. But if you can afford it, buy it in organic quality.